top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. On the heels of his first professional loss, former WBO cruiserweight champion Lawrence Okolie says, "I will definitely be pushing for a rematch with Chris Billiam-Smith, his former stablemate, newly crowned WBO cruiserweight champion. This is boxing. The main thing I know is I'm down, but I'm not out. It was a good performance from Chris," Okolie said to Sky Sports. "But there was nothing in there that made me think he's unbeatable or whatever else. It was just a good performance. He put everything on the line, and he's got his reward for it, but I will definitely be pushing for a rematch." Okolie also has no issues with going back to Billiam-Smith's hometown for the rematch. "It was exciting for me. I'm not going to lie. I loved it. It's very hard to recreate that energy for an opponent to come with everything."
You have to wonder if Lawrence would find himself in this position if he hadn't worked so hard to get away from Matchroom, if he hadn't worked so hard to cross over to Sky Sports and Boxer.
The understanding is that the people at Sky Sports and Boxer offered Lawrence Okolie more money to go over there and box for them.
Short-sighted.
On the heels of his first professional loss, you have to wonder if crossing over wasn't a mistake. Okolie has no issues going back to Billiam-Smith's hometown for the rematch.
Fighting in someone's back garden and seeing everything they've got. Chris was fantastic. His confidence is probably going to go up off that win, but there's not really much more to it. If I'm going to lose in Bournemouth, I might as well win here.
Returning to where it all happened, where it all started. Before he actually crossed over to Sky Sports and Boxer, the story was that the people at Sky wanted to turn Lawrence Okolie into the face.
The face of boxing for that platform. The face of boxing on Sky. I remember those headlines.
Looking at how all of this broke down, how could it have been their intention to make Lawrence Okolie the face of the platform when in many ways he was the away fighter?
Bournemouth is Chris's neck of the woods, not Lawrence's.
You went over there for a smidge more money than what you were making at Matchroom, and this was the end result?
Pretty much.
He felt the referee allowed himself to be influenced by Shane McGuigan, who trains Billiam-Smith and used to train Lawrence Okolie. There's certain positions that you're allowed to get into boxing, and there's no fight in boxing where two people don't come together. Obviously, with the occasion and you've got Shane McGuigan in the corner, he's holding, anyone can get flustered, Okolie said. The crowd was excited. It's Bournemouth. I was the away fighter in a sense. Despite being the champion, for me, I should have been better. I wasn't. So you've got to take it in and come again.
To be honest, it would be better for Sky, and it would be better for Boxer if there were no rematch, if there were no second fight.
It would be better for them because Chris Billiam-Smith, unlike Lawrence Okolie, he's got an entertaining style to watch. Chris Billiam-Smith, an action fighter that's always in action fights.
He can draw.
Why do you think the fight took place in Bournemouth? And why do you think the rematch might also take place there? The rematch where Lawrence says, "I'll empty the tank early. I wouldn't try to go to points." While Lawrence Okolie agrees with the first knockdown, he disputes the two that followed in the second half of the fight. "I think the first one definitely was a knockdown," Okolie said to Sky Sports. "I remember thinking, oh, good shot. I remembered when he landed, I think it was a left hook. I said, damn, you've got me. By the time the count got to 4, I was all right and then carried on. The other two, I didn't really feel like they were knockdowns. At the end of the day, I shouldn't be getting in those positions anyway. I should be standing up tall and boxing, so I've got to take those on the chin. Moments make fights. You get a knockdown, it boosts you for the next couple of rounds."
I thought Lawrence was going to win this fight the way he always wins fights.
Pawing with the jab and spoiling should the other man make his way past it, clinching, excessive wrestling.
Lawrence doesn't have a fun style to watch, and he's been through 3 trainers.
Not a single one made him an entertaining boxer,
Nope.
an entertaining fighter. His style remains the same.
More recently left Shane McGuigan on amicable terms to enlist the aid of Sugar Hill's steward.
But Sugar Hill is no wizard. He's not a magician.
He's just a man.
I hate losing. I'm a winner at heart. I was watching Lennox Lewis's documentary and I saw him take some losses and come back. And that's the kind of energy that I'm feeling right now. I'm going to be world champion again. Okolie and Billiam-Smith were friends and sparring partners under trainer Shane McGuigan. Last year, Okolie would part ways with McGuigan and retain the services of veteran trainer Sugar Hill Stewart. I like him as a person, Okolie said of Billiam-Smith. Billiam-Smith. I would obviously have liked to have beaten him and knocked him out, but he got the victory here. I don't really feel any ill will towards him.
It's a perfect storm is what it is. When you think about it, what set these events in motion that led Lawrence here?
He decided he didn't want to box under the Matchroom banner anymore. Matchroom that had been promoting him the entirety of his career. He decides he wants to box for Ben Shalom and Boxer.
Yeah.
He decides to relocate to Dubai, I believe it was.
Which was an inconvenience for Shane.
Shane, who at that time had Ellie Scottney and Carolyn Dubois, Daniel Dubois to tend to, Chris Billiam-Smith as well.
It was a proximity thing between them. That's why the partnership ended amicably. Ultimately, Lawrence needed someone more flexible. That wasn't Shane.
I had Sugar Hill Stewart, who trains Tyson Fury, some others.
I think Sugar Hill Stewart's a great trainer, but I don't think he's a magician. I remember him in Jelena Marjanovic's corner very recently.
He was in Jelena's corner for the Erica Cruz rematch, and the rematch went exactly the same way the first fight did.
Jelena lost.
Lawrence Okolie lost this past weekend to his former stablemate Chris Billiam-Smith because, like I said, Sugar Hill's a great trainer, but he's not a wizard. He's no magician.
Now Lawrence wants to activate his rematch clause.
But it would be better for Sky Sports and Boxer if Chris Billiam-Smith stays champion because Chris can draw. Lawrence doesn't.
That's the truth. You don't have to like it.
People were leaving Lawrence Okolie's fight with David Light from the lack of entertainment value.
That's the truth. You don't have to like it.
That Sky Sports and Boxer were paying this guy more than Matchroom was?
Yeah, something's got to give.
Chris Billiam-Smith said, Okolie's holding was annoying, but the referee did a really good job. I prepared for it. I have a fleece lining robe. I was sponsored for the event. They sent their material that they use for their fleece over to me. I had an inkling he might do that, given the fight was outside, so I thought, let's put some fleece lining in the robe. So, the boy sent it, the robe, up to us. Shout out to Sophie at Fight Label. It kept me warm out there, which was expected, Billiam-Smith told the Daily Mail. I even said to Shane in the ring, when he was taking his time, and I looked up at the screen, and they were struggling to get him out, I said, as expected. So yeah, you have to prepare for all eventualities. It's easier to expect the worst and expect him to keep me waiting. So no, I was very calm.
It was cold out there during the main event. I think I saw Anna Warhouse and Natasha Jonas sharing a quilt.
Chris Billiam-Smith came ready. Will he be ready for a second fight? A rematch. In truth, it benefits Sky Sports and Boxer a lot more to have a guy who can draw holding that belt than for Lawrence to win it back, and that's just reality.
The holding was annoying. I think the referee did a really good job. Lawrence in the past has always done that. It became more and more apparent because sometimes he was doing...
What he was doing was not off the back of a punch. He would literally just dip in and hold Billiam-Smith. I wasn't moving. I was trying to keep my arms on the inside to prove it wasn't me holding. We knew Lawrence was going to do it, and I could have negated it more at the time, but it was expected.
Lawrence got deducted 2 points by the ref for all that holding.
Lawrence is going to have to tidy it up in a rematch, and rematch situations are often won by the fighter that can make the most adjustments. Which fighter
is that to you? Is it Lawrence or is it Chris?
Like Chris Billiam-Smith, but I'll be honest, I didn't think he was going to win this past weekend's fight. He surprised me. He trapped lightning in a bottle. Can he do that twice?
He better if he wants to keep that belt.
In men's junior middleweight news, apparently Tszyu has undergone surgery following a reported dog bite. The Carlos Ocampo fight will still be moving ahead.
Momentum seems to be a very big thing for Tszyu. He lost a lot of time last year.
He only fought once, and before that, he was one of the most active fighters around in the men's junior middleweight division. He means to make up for lost time this year.
BoxingScene.com has learned that Tszyu was forced to undergo emergency surgery to treat a severe cut on his right arm he suffered over the weekend. The severity of the injury and the recovery process are not immediately known, though the development comes just 3 weeks prior to Tszyu's planned interim WBO junior middleweight title defense versus Mexico's own Carlos Ocampo.
Tszyu was treated by the team doctor and surgeon on Saturday afternoon for a laceration on his right forearm. Glenn Jennings, Tszyu's career-long manager, confirmed on Monday. Although he didn't specify the cause, the wound was superficial. The post-surgical report is all good.
I feel like if the wound, the laceration, were somewhere more delicate, like, say, the muscle,
somewhere on the bicep or the tricep, somewhere higher on the arm that might impede Tim's ability to use that arm and throw with it.
Better that the bite was is on his forearm than somewhere higher up on the arm.
But I'm no doctor. There's no doubt that Tim will be ready and 100% healthy and focused to take on Carlos Ocampo on June 18th. Varying reports from Australia have not definitively pointed out how Tszyu suffered the injury, though Fox Sports Australia reported, citing sources, that it was caused by a dog bite. For now, the show will move forward as scheduled. 12-round bout will headline a pay-per-view event in Australia, which will also air on Showtime Live in the United States from the Gold Coast Convention Center in Broad Beach, Queensland.
As long as Tim doesn't go turning into a werewolf, we should be all right.
Right. That Showtime is airing the fight here in America indicates that his pact with the PBC must still be intact, because if it weren't, Showtime wouldn't be showing the fight.
Right.
The only reason they are is because, at least for the time being, Tszyu still is a PBC fighter in this part of the world. Even if they're not the ones bankrolling that show, he's still one of theirs.
At least temporarily.
Like everyone, I was shocked and worried when I first heard the news. George Rose, Tszyu's promoter and CEO of No Limit Boxing, said of the incident in question, "It's certainly not the ideal preparation. Anytime a fighter ends up in a hospital a few weeks out from a world title fight, but the best news right now is that Tim is doing okay. He has the best and most experienced team around him in world boxing. They have assured me he'll be more than ready on June 18th to take on Carlos Ocampo. If they're confident, I'm confident."
So am I. I think he's going to knock Carlos Ocampo's block off. Stylistically, Tim's got the edge. Tim's got the advantage.
Carlos Ocampo likes to punch, and so does Tim, but Tim's more surgical, more precise.
Errol Spence Jr. knocked this guy out years ago down there at welterweight. Since then, he amassed a long string of victories up there at junior middle.
Got himself back in the winner's bracket, won a series of fights, though more recently suffered his second professional loss to Sebastian Fundoria.
Sebastian didn't look good in that fight, but he won.
In the who-done-it-better department, I feel like Tszyu will look a lot better against Carlos Ocampo than the very awkward and statuesque Sebastian Fundora did. This fight is for WBO interim status.
The winner of the fight is the mandatory challenger to absentee undisputed champion Jermell Charlo,
who hasn't had a fight in over a year's time, and I'm not completely sure when he is set to return, though I don't think it behooves him at all that while he's away,
Tim will have fought 2 times. If he wins, he will have fought 2 times. He will have fought against former champion Tony Harrison and world title challenger Carlos Ocampo.
While Jermell Charlo nurses a supposed wound, he's been collecting dust on the shelf.
Injured hand or something like that.
It's benched him a long while now.
And Tim's getting after him, though. He's not the only one. Terrence Crawford had a few choice words on Jermell Charlo as well. He wants that guy. He says,
"That dude is a hoe." For some odd reason, when I started calling out Errol Spence, he jumped in it. Mind your business. Stay on the sidelines. When I beat him, I'm coming to see you. Depending on how Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. goes, the severity of the knockout, if there is a knockout, whether or not Errol Spence Jr. chooses to activate his rematch clause 30 days after the bout, maybe Terrence does move up to junior middle. But if he does, will Jermell Charlo still be there?
it's a legitimate question. I'm not completely convinced he'll still be there to fight Tszyu, let alone Terrence Crawford.
The amount of time he spent away from the ring, it really doesn't behoove him to fight an active fighter, an aggressive fighter, and a young fighter like Tszyu. But until further notice, he's still that division's undisputed champion.
And if Tim beats Carlos Ocampo, he's going to make his way to Jermell, at which point Jermell's got to take care of that guy.
The WBO has set their deadline as to when they want that fight to happen beyond the upcoming Tszyu versus Ocampo fight. If Jermell were to, in theory, take care of business with Tim,
Hypothetically speaking.
and Terrence were to take care of business with Errol,
Hypothetically speaking.
so long as Errol doesn't activate that rematch clause, Terrence Crawford is off the hook and free to move up in weight to challenge
Shut down.
Jermell Charlo in what would be a bid to become a 3-time undisputed champion and a 4-weight champion overall.
Unprecedented.
I don't want to be presumptuous, but that's the skinny. That's how it all breaks down in that scenario. I think it would be undeniable that Terrence Crawford would be the sport's #1 pound-for-pound fighter if he became a 3-time undisputed champion.
Of course.
Some may crown him as such already if he ends up beating Errol Spence Jr., in effect becoming a 2-time undisputed champion, though it depends. It does.
Yeah.
It depends on what happens with Naoya Inoue and Stephen Fulton in Naoya Inoue's bid to become a 4-division champion.
Don't forget that fight is right around the corner.
And don't forget that Naoya Inoue, like Terrence Crawford, He's a 3-division champion who has been an undisputed Ring Magazine and Lineal champion before. He's in the process of trying to become a 4-weight champion.
If he does to Stephen Fulton what he's been doing to everybody else,
That makes for a strong case, a very strong argument for Naoya Inoue to become the sport's #1 pound-for-pound fighter. And what about Canelo?
Yeah.
What about his fight in September?
Yeah.
What if it's against David Benavidez?
how will that affect public perception of who the sport's #1 pound-for-pound fighter is? What if he fights him, and what if he wins?
And what about Usyk, Alexander Usyk, former undisputed, current reigning unified heavyweight champion, a 2-weight champion overall, who's very close?
he just needs that WBC title, that last brass ring. He just needs to get Tyson Fury.
Just needs to get him in the ring. The case of Alexander Usyk is a bit further out than, say, the case for Naoya Inoue or the case for Canelo Alvarez, because he may not be able to get Fury in the ring until later on this year, towards the end of it, in December. If he were to fight him and he were to beat him,
Strong case for him to be the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the sport. Terrence Crawford.
if he beats Errol Spence Jr. this summer and becomes a 2-time undisputed champion and a 3-weight champion overall, he'll have a strong case to be the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the sport, but even stronger if he can move up in weight and do it again.
The strongest.
2-time undisputed champion in the 4-belt era is unprecedented, but a 3-time undisputed champion.
We're not talking about picking up vacant titles here. We're talking about beating the champion to be the champion.
Beat the man to be the man. That's how it works.
For Jermell Charlo, that would present a bigger fight, a bigger money fight than any other fight at or around these weights. If Terrence were to knock out Errol Spence Jr.,
Jermell Charlo, in a bit of solidarity, might look to avenge his friend's loss the same way that Frank Dukes did at the Kumite in 1988.
What?
There aren't that many, if any, big money fights for Jermell at 154 or up there at 160. A Crawford fight in that scenario would represent the greatest financial value to Jermell, but that's contingent upon Jermell staying at junior middleweight for an extended amount of time, and I don't know if he's going to do that.
he's been out over a year.
He's got Tszyu hot on his trail. If he stays there, he's got to take care of that guy. He's got to win that fight in order to still be there for this one.
For a Crawford fight.
We're thinking many months down the line, many months. We're thinking maybe the first or second quarter of next year.